welcome to Human with Delta Forks. We're on episode 2. This is my guest, my good friend O'Neill. How you doing today, O'Neill?
I'm fantastic. It's a good day for a great day.
Hey, that well said. So I like to start out with just kind of a left field question. It's a philosophy question,
Okay.
and it might take a little bit of thought, but I think this one's appropriate to you. So, how would you define personal freedom through a philosophical lens?
Personal freedom through a philosophical lens. I don't know about a philosophical lens, but my opinion on freedom has always been if you're doing something that's not hurting anybody else, then by all means go ahead and have all the fun that you want, do all the things that you want to do, and drive on and be merry.
Fantastic. I agree. A lot of it. That's very close to my personal view of that. So I wanted to do this interview with you because you have some of the best stories.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the people that I'm going to be going with, they might not know who you are because you don't really have that much of a social media presence.
I
Uh,
have zero social media presence.
so you did EOD in the Army for some
Yes,
years.
yes, I was an explosive ordnance disposal technician for 4 years, and then in the army, and then I did 4 years as a contractor.
Okay. And he has a lot of stories, and they're really good. And we'll get into a few of them today. So again, with kind of a left field question, is outside of the Army, you've been working on an F-14. So what do you
Yeah.
prefer working on, an F-14 or a bomb?
Well, with the Tomcat, it's old and it's broke, and everything's old and broke on it. So, I mean, it's definitely a different type of experience, but I did like the challenge and thrill of going up to something and being like, "Yeah, this could kill me, but let's kick it and see what happens."
Yeah, you've had some interesting stories about like fluids being left in it, or like struts falling
Oh
apart.
yeah. Oh yeah, it still has was all the fuel that the Navy left in there because there's unusable fuel. You can never drain a aircraft completely
Hmm.
unless you open the tanks, and the Navy never bothered to do it. So all that unusable fuel that was in the lines drained into tank number 4 and no 5 and 6, which are the lower center line tanks. And so if we push up on that fluid test port where you're basically testing to see if there's water in the jet fuel, there's a whole bunch of fuel that comes out under pressure. So we're like, what are we gonna do about this? The
Oh,
Navy didn't do a very good job, but we were one of the first Tomcats that was ever inerted, so they really didn't have it down pat.
mm,
So there's stuff on there on that jet that should have been collected that wasn't collected, and has they've since okayed it being there, but they did everything kind of a little bit different than the other aircraft that were inerted for museum purposes.
right.
So fun jet to work on.
Well, it's certainly unique. Uh, and so getting into, I guess, a short question, not maybe like the full question. You have another experience with the jet. You have more than one experience with jets in your career.
Okay. Yeah,
You
yeah.
were telling me the story. You accidentally started one once.
Oh, okay. We gotta go back a ways to EOD school. So at EOD school is about a year and a couple week long process. So you go to basic training for 10 weeks, and then you go to your A school, which is for the Army is at 10 weeks at Fort Lee, and you're that's called Phase One EOD school. And then if you graduate that, you're able to proceed on to Phase Two, which is the regular EOD school at Eglin Air Force Base in at Eglin. It's up in Destin. So in fact, if you go on Google Maps and look at Destin, just on the map, there's a little triangle. There's this little triangle of dirt to the north of it, and that's all of EOD school exists in that triangle. And we call it Mickey's Triangle, but the is all sorts of weird stuff happens there. But if you zoom in close enough, you can see that there's a whole bunch. There's 5 or 6 aircraft that are just parked out in front of a building that just have no business being there. And that's part of Air Division, where you learn about aircraft explosive hazards and bombs and all sorts of crazy stuff, from the smallest little things like the cartridges that actuate ejection seats, all the way up to the MOAB. So it's everything and anything that can go on an aircraft you learn about there. And having grown up building plastic models as a kid, I was really, really excited to get there to see the real airplanes and being told, and I quote, "You can go finger fuck the airplanes." I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Let's go. So I went out there and at being directed to do that, they say go get familiar, look at stuff, learn at stuff, read stuff, and try to figure out what's going on here. And so I was wandering around. They had an Mi-24 Hind, which I thought was really neat. I'd never seen a Russian helicopter before, but I'm like, I can transliterate Cyrillics. Let's figure this out. So I get into the thing and I start flipping switches and flipping buttons. And I'm like, this is really fucking cool. And then I'm walking around it and I find the battery disconnect that's on the exterior. And so I pull the pin on that. I flip that. And I'm like, oh, maybe there's a little power in it. So I go back into the cockpit and I flip up the huge breaker bar to the left, huge breaker bar to the right. No lights are coming on, mind you, but I'm thinking to myself, all right, this is kind of cool. I can figure out how this thing works. And then I go over and I hit APU to crank, and then hit start, and it starts to crank. And I'm like, oh shit! So I hit the stop real quick, and it goes. It did not sound normal. It sounded really anemic and like it was really struggling, and like it was grinding all sorts of nonsense. And I'm like, oh shit. So I stopped that thing real quick. I flipped all those breakers back down and I'm like, oh God. And I hop out of that thing. The instructors are mad at me. Everybody's mad at me. And they're like, so, and they came out with a new directive the next day that says you're not allowed to go in the cockpits anymore. So it's part of my rule in life. If you're going to do something wrong, make sure you make the safety brief the next day.
Well, hey, you affected change on your day one?
Oh, that was like halfway through.
Okay. Well, you affected change.
I definitely did.
So that's at least good. So our next question, and kind of a segue away from that, as good of the story as it is. So doing EOD, what lessons have you learned doing that you've taken into civilian life later?
Oh God. The consequences that you worry about in the civilian life when you're walking around, like, because I'm a student now. I'm obviously at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University now, and I'm learning how to fix aircraft. And I go in, and a lot of the kids are very, very concerned about, like, oh my God, this test is going to be the end of the world, or this put in task X, Y, or Z. If I don't do this perfectly, it's going to be the end of the world. And like my biggest takeaway is like the biggest takeaway from EOD school has been like the consequences here, like in civilian life, are so small. Like if I mess something up as a tech, like the consequences are direct and immediate to me and potentially everybody around me. So, there's a lot of pressure to get it right and get it right the first time because you don't get to make that second chance with an explosive. Um, so it's really just like, hey, for people, I tell people, the kids all the time, like, take a step back, man. Like, this is not the end of the world. This is one day out of many. So
Right.
your problems that you have right now are not going to seem so big when you look back on them.
Yeah, especially in my work, even though I haven't done anything quite like that. Either in either direction, I don't work on planes, and I wasn't a bomb tech, but I am for people that I work with, they're either a lot older than me or they're younger than me. I'm kind of in that middle mystery age for social media. They don't know how old I am. Uh, but I kind of give the younger people, something that's like, hey, if you're unhappy, like, trust me, this is not that bad of a job. There's so much worse. Just chill. Just chill. So
Oh,
it's
my other big takeaway has been time. Like, spend time doing shit. Like, especially with if you got a significant or other or something, or you got just friends that you have around. Spend the money on time. If you're gonna spend money on any one thing, time, because you can never get it back. So yeah, I will spend all sorts of money on my friends and on making sure that we're having fun. So,
oh, that's it.
but
Hey, no, I agree. I think time is the one thing that as you said, you never get back, and stuff breaks. So
oh yeah.
it is how it is. So what was the most pleasant and least pleasant places you did EOD work, if you
Oh
can tell
God.
me?
The most pleasant place that I did EOD work. Uh, Honestly, sitting on my backside at home, just phoning it in. No, I get it. But a lot of being a tech is actually doing research and uh, basically trying to figure out like how can we do our job better. And that was my favorite part of being a tech. But I don't think that's quite what you're asking. More asking like location, locale, and times and places. So
With
I
what
would
you
s-
can say. I know some
yeah,
they can be a little sensitive.
I would say one of my favorite places to do the EOD work was when I was at Hood, because just it was just some of the wackiest, stupidest stuff that we would see. And probably one of well then probably my least favorite place to do EOD work was actually in Nevada when I
Mm.
was when I was a contractor, because oh boy, was that company all jiggity jacked. They had a lot of interesting ideas about what they were going to do to inert these particular pieces of ordnance that they were trying to make money off of inerting, and they uh,
I
they
re-
did some dangerous shit.
I remember that story. Is a person with only like basic like mechanical knowledge that pertaining to that sort of stuff, and I'm just like, no, no, why would you do that? But I guess I answer your own question. They're doing it for money.
Yeah,
So
no, they're making some money off some of those shots, and then oh god, yeah, they were really invested in making money off those shots.
yeah, it's
Oh,
yeah, it's almost like corporate and EOD work shouldn't be mixed
no,
because
they shouldn't.
no,
No, not at all.
it was. I mean, you have some of those nonprofits, removing mines and stuff, and that's about as
Oh
far as
yeah,
I think you should go with it. But
oh yeah. No, they
it's
oh boy, that company was a little messed up. And it had mostly to do with the location they were at.
mhm,
Their workforce, they were a 1 square mile town, like literally a 1 square mile town. I'm not being like facetious or anything.
one square
The
mile.
town fit 1 square mile,
Oh man.
and it was surrounded by like 86 square miles of bunkers, and they were demilitarizing cluster munitions, which I think are now all getting sent to. But um, uh, uh, they're dismantling like the CBU 87 and like the improved conventional 105s, and just all sorts of weird stuff that we don't have use for anymore in the United
Mhm.
States military, and because we got better stuff that does the same thing. And uh, uh, they were getting rid of these things in a fashion that flew right in the face of everything that I'd been taught at EOD school and everything that just made good sense. Like they had the kids that were doing it. Their workforce since was pulled from that 1 square mile town. They were like almost all related to each other in some way or shape or form, and they're kids with like who just got out of high school, and they go to work at the ammo plant, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the greatest job ever." And then I come in and I see kids like juggling the training aids, the little M42 grenades that look like film canisters. I'm like, "No, no, stop! You just gotta stop right there, buddy.
You're gonna kill us
That's
all.
bad. Not good."
That's
Yeah.
that yeah, that would be like one of the few times that I've ever just like walked in and then walked out. And it's just, especially with your knowledge, knowing well far and beyond more than, or and exactly why that's bad. Not that it's bad, but why it's bad. Uh,
Oh yeah.
so
They're
it's
all marked the same. So like, how do you know those are the training aids, buddy?
mm, or mistakes happen and stuff that gets slipped into the wrong container also happens, and you
Oh
never know when something might sympathetic or go off when it's not a dud and it's sympathetic something else.
my God, that reminds me. I had OSHA come in on me when I was at Hood. When I was, all of our officers were out back, and they were getting ready for our big old FTX. And then OSHA walks into the motor pool, and it's just me in there in the offices, and they come in and uh, like an '04, like a couple '02s, and like a sergeant, and then like three civilians come in, and they're looking around. I'm like, hey, can I help you? This is a secured area. Like, I need you all to fuck off. And they're looking at me, a little E4 specialist, like, well, general military courtesy. I'm like, we can do all that outside. So we go out in the training bay, and I'm like, so who are you and what are you trying to do here? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, the guys are like, oh, we're the ocean inspectors. We're here to do this. So can you explain to me why that eyewash station has the MSDS right in the middle of it? I'm like, oh, well, that thing's not even hooked up. Like, and they're like, what? It's not hooked up. And I'm like, yeah, the building hasn't had water pressure for years.
Oh
Like,
no.
this is not a me problem, man. Like, who do you want to talk to?
Yeah.
Like, well, we need to talk to your OIC, and we'll also talk about your discipline issue. And I'm like, all right, cool. So in the mean, like, so I call, I'm texting Lieutenant Kenny on the phone, and I'm like, hey, boss, you got to get over here, and the OSHA guys are here. In the meantime, this guy's asking me all these questions. We had these racks for our robots, and they're like, well, how do you get stuff down from the top? And I'm like, dude, there's some air stairs that are over at they're over in the maintenance bay that we'll drag over whenever we're trying to get stuff out. You're completely lying out my ass. and,
You guys standing on
and they,
ladders and forklifts on
yeah, yeah.
forklifts.
No, we'll just climb that. We'll climb the outside of the thing and just throw shit off. So, and they're like, and the guy's like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then he goes and he starts pointing to like these various artillery shells and stuff that we have, and like landmines and stuff we have laying around. They're like, well, how do you know that these are inert? And I just didn't know how to answer that question. I was like, what? He's like, oh, how do you know that they're safe? How do you know there's no explosive in there? And I looked over at the EOD Brassard on my patch, and I looked at the guy. I was like, well, shit, boss. I guess I better call EOD down here. Oh, wait. So oh man, that went over like a fart in church.
Oh.
They were not happy, but my first sergeant was less than happy when he found out about their nonsense.
Oh no.
So oh, it was great.
Hey, it's a good story if nothing else.
Fucking OSHA. I wonder if it's dangerous. I walked over and I kicked one.
Did he shit
That
himself?
seems safe to me.
Did he shit himself?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Like
fantastic.
everyone freaks out when the EOD guys start messing around.
I feel like
We
Go
kidnapped a guy.
Oh
We
no.
kidnapped a guy to be a training aid for us.
Oh.
He
Oh
was
no.
he was walking past the motor pool. I was like, "Hey man, you want to do some EOD work? Like you want to come blow something up?" And he's like, "Sure." I'm like, "Good. Come here." We dragged him by the arm. Somebody jammed a sandbag over his head, zip tied him together, put him on a chair, pulled the sandbag off when he was on a chair in the motor pool, slapped a cardboard box on his lap, flipped a bunch of switches, and I'd be like, "All right, now don't move, buddy. Oh, by the way, death to America, and have fun." So we walk away. So we all walk away, and then they start the team leader shirt with this kid that's freaking the fuck out.
Hey, it's
Oh, it was
realistic,
great.
I suppose. So,
It was fun times. That poor kid's command was upset with us.
oh, understandably. But I feel like, and this is a segue into another question,
Okay.
is a lot of people that don't know much about EOD or that sort of thing think it's like Hurt Locker. But because of that, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it's bad fan fiction and 10 it needs to be deleted, how much do you like or dislike Hurt Locker?
Oh God, I get this question all the time, and it's funny because I love the movie. It's a great little bit of cinema because it's completely let's get one thing out of the way. It's completely unrealistic.
Oh, for sure.
Like there's stuff that he does in there that you just cannot do, like physically cannot do.
The major
But
scene.
one of my my perfect example is it's in the beginning of the movie when when he's doing that. Jeremy Renner's doing his first response with the team after Guy Ritchie has got blown the fuck up, and so he goes down range, and he's like he's doing like all sorts of weird stuff. He's like somehow he has a radio in the bomb suit. We don't have radios in the bomb suit, but so he's down range, and he's like he's decided that he wants to do a hand entry on this artillery shell that he's found. And he's like, all right, cool. Like, oh no, what's this? Where's this wire go? And he grabs the center of the wire and he pulls it up, and there's like 6 artillery shells that pop up all around him. I love that scene. It's so great. But because like it's something that they're inanimate objects, but there's so much danger that's represented there, and even as a civilian, you can see it on the screen. You're like, oh shit. So This is a serious occurrence. And but what's funny about it is that their artillery shells with a packed fuse well.
Mhm.
Each one of those rounds weighs about 100 pounds. So he's deadlifting 600 pounds in a bomb suit. And I can't do that, but good on him that he can. So
Iron Man, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, what's funny is as a tech, I can tell you exactly what round those are, and those are from they're a submunition dispensing 155 round that that dispenses out smoke pots, and
Oh,
so they're hollow on the inside. So those rounds that are displayed there only weigh about 40 pounds. But what's funny to me is that the very next thing he does is he goes down on his hands and knees and with his fingers pulls the blasting cap out of the plastic explosive that's packed in the fuse well. Which, all right, fine, you're reducing explosive hazard. One, why are you doing it when you're there? And two, what should have happened, since friction is a thing that exists in the real world, when he grabbed that center thing and pulled up, he should have been holding like 6 blasting caps dangling on the end of of a bunch of wires.
yeah.
So,
Like it's someone who doesn't know anything about EOD, but watching that happen, that was the same thought. It's like, wait, those are heavy as shit.
oh, it's a
Wha-
great movie.
Oh, and
Like
for
the
cinematics, fantastic in drama. But even I'm just sitting there like, yeah, I don't know how much. I'm just pressing X to doubt. But you're right. It's a
the
pretty good movie on the
the
whole.
attitudes, he gets the attitude perfect. Like the attitude of attack is great. The the other one there's one that just came out that was that I got a great laugh of, Obliterated, by it's a Netflix show and it's
Mm.
got like 8 episodes from it, and the EOD texts this old guy with a missing thumb, and he's like, "Who's got one thumb and just saved all of Las Vegas? This guy." And he's like, he just parties off his ass like crazy, and that's a tech right there. Like I don't know who it was, but a tech had a hand in writing that.
Well, I feel like when you're crawling on your hands and knees next to a couple 100 pounds of explosives potentially, you might as well need to. Because
Oh,
what was it? You were telling us one time that, like, the bomb suit doesn't do anything outside. Like,
uh,
well, not nothing, but at that level,
oh
it's
yeah,
it.
no. There's a certain point at which you're like, you can justify not being in the suit anymore, and as soon as you can justify not being in the suit anymore, not being in the suit, don't be in the suit. Like, it's actually really funny. I had just bought like a not a month and a half ago a bomb suit off of eBay
Oh no.
for shits and giggles. So,
Okay.
and yeah, I saw it. It was like $3,500 on the internet. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do this. Like, why the hell not? So I buy the thing. It comes out to me, and I brought it into the university and like put it through this to the student veterans organization. Like, we had our recruiting drive, and I was putting people in the suit. Like, hey, take take it for a spin, run around in it. It's fun. And what was even funnier was that it was brand new, and I had never in my life have I seen a brand new bomb suit. And so I was like, I'm gonna get a call about this. But and sure enough, about 3 weeks later, I got a call from the U.S. Army that's saying like, "Hey, did you buy this thing off the internet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I absolutely did." And they're like, "So it's stolen government property." And I'm like, "Yeah, no worries, dude. Where do you want it? Like, I'll bring it right to you." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I know what it is. I know it's legal to own. I know they cost 35,000, but I got this thing for like 3,500, so it was a nice rental for a while. But eBay was, believe it or not, eBay is the easiest people out of all of this to deal with, because they within a minute I had a live person on the phone, and they were telling me like, hey, this is what's going on with it. We'll go ahead and refund all your money. So
Hey.
hell yeah.
Well, hey, it was. I mean, mental. I mean, you got your security deposit back,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're not in federal prison. So,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
it's a fun time. So
Uh,
don't tell him, but I took the patch off the bag.
hey.
I had to
Uh,
get something out of it.
hey. Well, as long as that story's going up on the internet isn't going to get either of us in trouble, we are good.
No, no, I was like, you're gonna be in trouble.
Otherwise, I can just like take out names and times and dates and
No, you're
segments.
good. You're good.
Uh, but yeah.
I'm
So I think one of my favorite stories that you've ever told me was the ones and threes.
a,
Is that
oh,
a story
jeez.
you can tell on? Is that a story you can tell, or
It's
is
a
it
render safe. It's a render safe procedure, but I can be very generic with it. I'm not
okay?
gonna be able to get into as much detail.
Whatever you need.
So
Whatever you need.
A render. So for those of people who don't know, a render save procedure is what we as a tech, when we go in to do something, that's the ultimate goal. We want to take whatever item it is and put it into a safe condition in order to remove the explosive hazard from the scene and protect personnel and property. That's all. That's really all we want to do is protect personnel and property. And uh, uh, so there were items that were developed during the Cold War that were designed to prevent Soviet ships from entering harbors where we didn't want them to go. So normally when you're replacing naval mines, you need to use a ship. So you take a ship that would go lay down mines, and then they'd drop moored mines that would sit on the bottom. And this is more of the Navy's purview. However, in this particular instance, it's also the Army's purview because of the nature of these things. So uh, yeah, so the Navy usually deals with the underwater stuff, and uh, which is funny for us because we always say like, hey, if you don't want to deal with something, throw it in a bucket of water and call the Navy. Be like, oh no, I found an underwater mine. Like they show up like, dude, that's a hand grenade in a 5 gallon bucket. Like, yeah, I know, it's your problem. Have fun. No, I don't know that this ever happened, but it's the fun joke. But so the military developed something called a destructor bomb, and the destructor bombs were fuse kits that are put on the back of traditional airdropped general purpose bombs, and it turns them into naval mines. So they have magnetic fusing and seismic acoustic sensors on them. So what they would do is they'd sit on the bottom of a shallow water harbor, and they would basically that sensor would activate, and it would detect the magnetic signature of the boat that would travel over it, and then when all the conditions were met and the proper conditions were met, it would explode and hopefully sink your boat. So the downside to these things is that they were a pain in the ass to deal with, and if you had one that went off, um, that was jettisoned off an aircraft, you had to assume that it was a live item. So they had two or three instances that I'm aware of that, or rather that I've been told about, where they had people that had to go do destructor mines, and there's a specific approach process that you need to use for it because they're magnetic, and they are extremely magnetic, and the longer they sit active, the more sensitive they become. So they developed this thing called ones and threes. We have 1 minute where you have 1 second of movement, and then 3 seconds of complete silence and complete motionless. So you would take one step and then wait, one step and then wait, and you start that at a specific distance out from your item. So uh, it is a incredibly sensitive piece of equipment, and as a result, you had to divest yourself of all metal. So anything ferrous. So the rule is, and we always do worst case scenario, just strip out of everything and then go.
Oh.
So you'd had guys that would be stripped down to their ranger panties and would start doing ones and threes, which sounds cool until you realize that these things were mostly employed in the Bering Strait in Alaska.
Oh
So
no.
they'd be freezing their balls off doing ones and threes towards these things. So
Ooh.
they yeah, there's a lot of weird funny stuff that's out there that we don't use anymore because it's just not practical. There's way better ways to do things, as you just finding out. Like just load a speedboat, make a remote control speedboat, load it with explosives, drive right up to it, and crank it off.
Hey, I mean, there are some wrecks at the bottom of the ocean that can test to it.
They're converted submarines, man. They're awesome.
Yeah, it's so that kind of brings me to, I guess, my last most serious question.
Okay, all right,
And
we're getting
I
serious.
think I think you're very very qualified, or at least of everyone that I know, uh, to answer this question, or at least have very specific insights to it. So all the stuff that's
Okay.
happening in a specific Eastern European country right now, and they're
Yep.
launching all sorts of ordnance. What did I think? What at one time was launching 50,000 152s every month, every week.
Oh yeah.
And so obviously, knowing the quality that's coming out of some of those stores is very bad. So I guess, what do you think with that level of dud rate? Is going to be a really bad UXO problem, and how is that going to have to be dealt with in the years post-war?
It's not even the UXO. It's not even the UXO that's going to be the issue. Like we're not talking about all. It's all considered UXO,
Right.
but it's not going to be the duds that are considered the issue. So a dud is a round that you fire, artillery round or a bomb or something that you fire or otherwise deploy in the normal fashion, and for whatever reason it fails to function, and that was what you would call a dud. And then it's considered UXO, but there's a lot that the Russians have. They have dispensed scatterable mines that are aircraft deployed and artillery shell deployed, and emplaced mines that will still are basically, as soon as you fire it, as soon as they're out of the canister, they're going to function as designed, and they're going to sit there forever until somebody disturbs them. So, and that's really what I look at when think about and look at when I'm looking at the problem. Well, I guess I don't know if you want me to say, but
No, I can edit it out. I can edit it out.
okay.
Just to
The
play it safe.
So a lot of that country is farmland, and a lot of this particular country is farmland, and so by putting a scatterable minefield and dispensing scatterable landmines into somebody's farmland, all of a sudden they can't farm that land, and you've basically crippled their ability to feed the people. So an army, and like Napoleon has said, an army does travel on its stomach,
Right.
but it's a country survives on its stomach.
Well,
So
especially with that being
it,
the breadbasket of Europe.
yeah.
And
Oh no, it's really bad. And so I was talking to a peer of mine not too long ago, and we had both read the same report, and we kind of agreed with it. They're looking at roughly 30 years of cleanup until they get to like maybe a 95% like cleared rate for the entire country at the rate they've been sending rounds out. So um, and it's going to be a mess. It's going to be billions and billions of dollars that they're going to have to spend on this, and somebody's going to make a whole lot of money doing it. And it's not going to be me, because I don't want to. I don't. There's no way in hell that you get me to go back out there. My
oh
have
yeah.
gun will travel days are done.
So, and I guess the other thing is, especially with some of this older ordnance, especially with some of the Soviet bloc ordnance, those explosives are really toxic. So
uh,
that's gonna is it gonna fuck up the soil a little bit?
So their traditional filler is A1X1
Mm-hmm.
or A1X2 every once in a while. It's just RDX and wax. It's nothing crazy.
Oh,
Like it's the same stuff. It's basically a version of C4. Like they arrived at the same composition with different math. Basically, was what it boils down to. Different chemistry.
right.
I'm not I'm not really the best, most qualified chemist to talk about that, but
Well,
um,
you're more qualified than
it's
I am.
it's spicy killy buddy is all it is. And then they're able to then you're able to cast it in a certain way, and then
Mm-hmm.
they cast it as a slurry, and then it sits in there, and then it lasts forever until you crank it off.
Right.
So
Or burn it.
yeah.
And so it's
C4 is fun until you burn it. Until recently, claymores used to have "Do not eat" on the back of them.
yeah, it did I don't know that you can tell that story.
I,
What,
I probably can't tell I probably can't tell my version, but I can tell the historical side of it.
we
So
can go ahead.
Back in the Vietnam era war, the soldiers, we had conscripts basically. Well, close to conscripts. We had people that were voluntold that, hey, you're going to join the army, and so you didn't always want to go out on patrol. If you've ever watched Oliver Stone's Platoon, I think it's Oliver Stone, but great movie. I love that movie. Willem Dafoe, powerhouse actor,
Oh
one of
yeah.
my favorites. But uh, they have they have guys that really don't want to go out on patrol. And in fact, the one guy that shares my name that I absolutely hate, he's actually the doctor from Scrubs, Dr. Cox from Scrubs, is O'Neill, and he just really wants to avoid going out on patrol. So sometimes you'd have a guy like that would be in a unit like that, and what they would do is they break open a claymore mine, and they take out one of the ball bearings from the matrix of C4 that was in there, and they'd swallow that ball bearing. So when you swallow the ball bearing, it's coated with high explosive. What it'll do is it's the world's greatest laxative, and it gives you the world's biggest headache. So as a result, they would mimic dysentery. So then they go to the medics and be like, "Hey, I got dysentery. I can't go on patrol," and then so you wouldn't go on patrol. So it was kind of a way to sham out of doing it. So in the years after Vietnam, they started producing claymores that said on the back that so on the front it said front towards enemy. On the back it said back M18 anti-personnel mine, and it would say do not eat. So
Hey, it's if say what you want about like drafty infantry, but I think the average person in a zone in a situation like that is, for better or worse, at least like innovative to
oh,
like
dude, that's
and
you want to talk about you want to talk about
sane.
life lessons? Oh man, I found I was at the airport the other day waiting to pick up one of my friends. Actually, somebody that you're going to interview here
Mhm.
not too long in the future. But I was I noticed that there was an older guy that was there. We were in a Vietnam War veteran. And I'm like, hey, what'd you do? And he's like, oh, I was in the infantry in Vietnam. I'm like, all right, that's kind of neat. He's like, yeah, I was a tunnel rat. And I'm like, what?
Oh shit!
I was like, that's exactly what I said. I said, oh shit. And I'm like, dude, like, what was that like? That was a really dangerous job. And he's like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, I was EOD tech. And I'm like, I kicked things that looked dangerous and hoped that I wouldn't explode. And he's like, oh, I wouldn't want to do your job. I'm like, I wouldn't want to do your job. Like, this is fucking awesome. Let's talk.
Yeah.
So that guy's telling me some great stories, but that's a great life lesson though. You just talk to people like
Oh
those
yeah.
those random vets that you see, like they're wearing the veteran hat. Ask them what they did, like, and so every once in a while you'll get like a cook or something, and like I love talking to those guys. They got some of the greatest fucking stories ever because like all service is service. I don't
Oh yeah.
care what you did. You helped grease the wheels of the military machine in one way or another.
Oh sure.
Like from the dude down there the operator dude smoking like the smoking the assholes with the with his rifle, all the way to the dude that's like, oh my god, I'm the 42 alpha and I'm doing the paperwork, I'm making sure you got paid. Like everybody's service is important.
Oh for
Like
sure.
I don't care what you did.
Yeah,
So
it's whether you're punching holes at dudes at 800 meters or warheads on
I
foreheads. So
I
it's
pressed a button.
hey, I mean Starship Troopers. If you disable the
Yep.
man's hand, he cannot press a button, and your hand wasn't disabled. So
Oh god.
it's a really interesting thing, and I think kind of going off what you said, just talking to people, it's kind of what I'm doing here. And I mean, the two
Yeah.
people, you and the other person so far that I've known for a while. So it's but branching into I think the person that I'm going to interview that you mentioned, I've never spoken to.
Oh yeah.
So like, and from what you've told me,
She's good people.
uh, she's good people. I'm okay people. It ought to be all right. But you told me she has some crazy stories, and we're working through, or we're talking to set that up. So stay on the lookout for anybody actually watching this.
Oh shit. You want me to tell it? I got a good one now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Uh, I'm gonna tell you about the time I accidentally abducted two children.
Oh no, oh no.
So, uh, EOD school story again. So, Eglin Air Force Base, and it was not too much longer. It was not too far after the aircraft incident,
Okay,
but we were driving home because so EOD school. When you look at a map, you can if you find that little dirt triangle that's to the north of Destin. EOD school is to Airland Air Force Base is to the west of it. So there's like 10 to 20-minute drive depending on traffic. And whenever we were going back, there was always bad traffic. But we got we got stuck at a red light, and there's a one of those right-hand turn protected like sort of flyovers where you don't have to stop, you just yield to whoever. And some lady pulled out and in front of a motorcycle, and that motorcycle, and I don't know that this has happened. All I hear is screeching tire, and then I hear a crash, and I'm in the back passenger seat on the driver's side of my buddy's car with three other soldiers. And so we all look to the right because we hear the screeching tire and we hear the crash. And next thing I know, I'm seeing like an Air Force battle uniform like flipping through the air and then landing on the grass median. I'm like, oh damn! At least he landed on the median. Fuck. And so the driver says like, holy shit. The passenger guy says, was that Staff Sergeant Dickey? And then the other guy says, yep. And I'm like, all right, let's go help. So all 4 doors open at the same time. Now, I need you to understand that there are 3 lanes of traffic going the one way
Uh-huh.
at this light, and we're all stopped at the red light. So 4 other cars, this exact drama played out the exact same way. So you basically immediately lock down the intersection, and you have a bunch of soldiers that are flooding towards the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, because we all go to the same schoolhouse.
Sure.
And it's a joint base thing for EOD. So we go and like we're all running up, and my class at OIC, Lieutenant Kenny, is right there, and he's immediately assessing the injuries, trying to keep Sergeant Dickey squared away, and so he throws me his keys. And he's like, O'Neill, start go move my truck, start moving vehicles, clear the intersection for emergency personnel. I'm like, yes, sir. And I'm like, so I grab his keys. I like trying to remember what kind of truck he has. Like I vaguely remember he has a blue, big old SUV, and I see a blue Suburban, like a navy blue Suburban, like in the very front. And I'm like, fuck yeah, he's like right there at the red light. So easy day. So I run up. I go to put the keys in the ignition, and there's a set of keys in the ignition. I look up into the rearview mirror, and there are 2 terrified children staring back at me. And I'm like, slowly, like, I was like, oh shit. And I slowly turn around, and I'm like, don't worry, kids. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Oh no.
Yeah, I didn't know what else to say. So I shift the car into gear, and that's when they started screaming.
Oh.
So I'm like, fuck, like, shut the fuck up. We're going across the street. So I pull across the street into this dirt lot that's there, and I park the car. And I get out. I'm like, stay fucking here until your parents, or whoever the fuck was driving comes back. Like, I close the door and leave the fucking car running, and I just go back and start moving more cars.
No.
And by the third time that I'm going back, I see this woman frantically looking around. I'm like, your car's over there. And I got the fuck out of there as quick as I could. I made myself so scarce. I went to Kenny, and I was like, sir, I can't tell you why, but I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Oh no. It's a good fucking story. That's and no fallout ever came from that.
No,
Oh,
I wasn't around for it. Maybe there will now.
Maybe there will not. Well, hey, if it helps, I'll just like I'll bleep out all the names.
No, don't. I fucking wanted. I wanted full send. Oh my god. Oh, there's an even better story.
Okay, hit me.
Oh shit. There's the meme that goes around the internet of the kid that the kid that had the girlfriend that did the porno,
Uh-huh.
right? I graduated EOD school with him. He was an EOD tech.
Oh.
Yeah. He was my graduating class. I know that dude. Fucking.
Oh, no.
He got held up. His clearance got held up over that shit. So because it happened. So it happened. So the picture of them together when he's in the ACUs is from Fort Jackson Family Day when he graduated basic, and then he goes to Fort Lee, and they were together for half of Fort Lee, and then at some point, like he was like, fuck this noise, because he found out that she was cheating on him, and then the video drops, and he had no idea until they came and were like, hey, there's a video out here, and now there's images out here that are tied to it. So, now you have, all of a sudden we have a huge issue because our clearance is TSSCI. So top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information, and we get a couple of extra endorsements. We get some called SINWITI, which is critical nuclear weapon design information. And there's a couple of us that'll get Yankee White clearances because they got to work at the White House. But there's all sorts of weird clearances and weird stuff that goes into being an EOD tech. And if you can't hold that clearance, you can't be a tech. So he basically was like his future was being questioned by all this. So he went the other way with it. He started pushing it out even more. And basically was like, all right, it's a non-issue now. So, give me my stuff back. He ended up there's more to this. There's more to that story because he ended up being. So I ended up going to Fort Hood with him. So we both got assigned to the same unit, and we were at that unit, and he was basically a fuckboy, like just completely a fuckboy,
Well, after
and he was.
that.
No, he just in general, he was a fuckboy. He
Oh,
was
okay.
like the dude was pretty jacked, but dumber than a box of rocks. And he oh man, they wanted to kick him out of the military for some shit. Like, so I was usually the most sober guy. I lived off post at the time, and I would get called all the fucking time by Joes that needed like fucking rides. Or, like, especially junior enlisted, because junior enlisted we watch out for each other. The E4 mafia is a real thing.
Sure.
And yeah, so I basically I got a call from him at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, like, hey man, I need you to pick me up from base out or from this address. And it ended up being on base housing. And I saw him, like, I park in this cul-de-sac, and I'm like, dude, where the fuck are you? I don't see you at all. And I see it, then I see motion, and I key in on it, and I see him hopping a fence. And I'm like, what the fuck? And like, he gets in the car, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck's going on? He's like, oh man, like I don't know what to talk about it. I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. And I'm like, I'll get you like I'll get you home. Like, I don't fucking I don't fucking know or care. So I get him home, but then I find out that he was banging an 04's wife while he was deployed. And I was basically picking him up from
Oh,
her fucking place.
oh
And he had
no.
hopped over their backyard fence into that yard, and then hopped that fence. Like, so there's like, he was doing some shady shit, but they wanted to get him kicked out of the military, and they eventually figured it out. They just drug tested him for steroids. So that was it. Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, that
That's
dude was
I would
that
have
dude was funny. He was funny, and that was a really funny situation. And every time I see that meme, I really laugh hard at some of the comments that you'll see, like, on the social media things about it. They'll be like, "Oh, he was a Navy SEAL, and or this thing or the other thing, or he's her brother or something like that."
uh
It's like some weird shit. I'm like, nah, no, like, I knew that dude. He wasn't as cool as you think he was. So, like, I'll completely dox the shit out of him, but I won't do it here.
oh.
I do it every time I see it. I drop his name. Like, every time I see it, doesn't matter where he is. Usually it's on 9gag, believe it or not. I'll immediately be like, oh yeah, this fucker.
uh what is it? What was it? I forget what it was, like Vet TV or something like that. That guy was like, the military's just full of a bunch of, like, quote unquote dirt bags that they only just want to, like, get fucked and get drunk.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Oh god.
I mean, that, I guess I was never in the military, not for lack of
Oh my.
trying, but it seemed to be about my experience the couple times I went to MEPS.
My first experience with the EOD company. It was funny enough with that guy. We both in process in the hood together, and in a Fort Hood, and now it's like Fort whatever, but it's always going to be
Yeah.
Fort Hood to me. Um, uh, God, yeah. So we in process, and then we're going to the EOD barracks because he's not married. I was married at the time, but so he's getting assigned a barracks room, and I had to, I was just with him. And so we're going to the barracks building, which are like kind of like a Red Roof Inn style hotel, where you have like a hotel room door that opens directly to the outside,
Mhm.
and then like it's crazy. But so we're being assigned. He's being assigned a room, and he's like, he gets handed the keys. He's going to unlock that door for the first time, and then a door down at the far end, like maybe 50 yards down the hallway, busts open, bangs against the outside, and then a butt naked dude comes sprinting out, yelling, "I'm a firefly! I'm a firefly!" And he starts sprinting like full bore towards us. So I'm like, I back up, I get out of the way, and he runs past. And so I look at him as he's gone past, he has an orange chem light jammed up his asshole, and he's like, "Yo, I'm a firefly!" Ah! And I'm like, So I look at the sergeant that's with us. Like, is that normal? He's like, oh yeah, dude. It's Friday night, man. Weird shit happens here. I'm like, I think I joined the right part of the military.
I mean, yeah, you. From what
Dude,
I
EOD
from what I
companies,
know,
we're
it's
small. Oh my god, it's like a company is like 30 dudes.
oh wow, yeah. Your company that's a platoon size element for anyone else.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's oh man.
it's great. Yeah, it was great. Like you knew everyone, first name basis for everything, and like, um, you knew your officers. You knew it like they were your like you were probably drinking at their house.
Yeah.
But oh my god, I had some of the greatest officers that I could have ever expected to have. Um, but then I had like there's always one or two that sucked, and which was funny because I just found out that one of the dudes I went through EOD school with, this guy named Lieutenant Moultrie, he was a West Pointer. Definitely include his name. He was a piece of shit. Oh man, he was a cocky little shit. He ended up going to one of the soft support units at Fort Bragg, and I just found out that he continued to be a piece of shit with those guys and tried to like throw his fucking weight around. And it didn't go well for him. It did not go well for him at all.
Especially in that
So
community, like of
no,
the
God no.
handful of dudes I've met from that community, just that overall soft umbrella. Those dudes don't give a fuck.
No, not at all. Oh my God. They had so much fun messing with that dude.
Oh, I bet. So, to wrap us up, maybe we'll have
Okay.
another part two because you have a lot of
Okay.
stories. Uh, so to wrap us up for part one, what is your favorite charge that you've ever cranked off?
Oh shit. Oh buddy.
Your face is lit up. I know I asked the right question, right? That was a Sean Evans question right there.
So there was a place. I'm gonna deliberately obfuscate some stuff here.
Sure, go for it.
So there was a place that I was, and I was doing some things with some people,
Uh huh.
and it was a lots and lots of fun. Um, but I had a there was an incident where they had somebody that decided to take their own life from a, let's say, a sister company, and that person uh, we were tasked to go in and clean out their personal, or clean up their lodgings for their personal effects. So I went and I went with a junior guy, and I went in and I knocked on the door, I opened the door, and it was uh, I saw a naked woman on face down on the bed, and I was like, "Oh, I am so sorry, ma'am." And I backed out and closed the door. And so I'm expecting to see, like, like maybe I have the wrong house, maybe I have like the wrong stuff going on, and then I'm like, I'm not hearing any movement from in there. Like, did he pull a murder
Bruh.
type thing? And
Oh
I'm like,
no.
shit. So I open the door back up, and I'm like, I walk in and I touch two fingers to like the neck to try to find a pulse, and I am, as soon as my hand makes contact, I'm like, oh, because it is silicone, 100%, like not living flesh,
Oh no.
not dead flesh either. And I'm like, oh my god. Ugh.
Wasn't ready for
I'm
that.
like,
Don't love
I was
that.
not ready for it. Not ready for it at all. I didn't. Thank God I didn't know this guy, because I would not have been able to keep a straight face talking to his family if I had to. Um, hey you. I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm gonna do to this. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like this is way outside my purview. And so I go to the junior guy's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah, like what the fuck are we gonna do?" So I call my boss and I'm like, "Hey boss, like what the fuck do I do about this?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is a you problem. This ain't a me problem. Like fucking figure it out." And I'm like, "Oh god damn it." So I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I go to my junior guy, like, dude, I'm like, dude, go get a body bag. Like, we're gonna fucking solve this shit the old fashioned way. So he goes, he gets a body bag, and we're on the second floor of this particular building. So we load this thing into a body bag, like touching it as little as we possibly can.
Please tell me you had
And
gloves.
oh god, yeah. I got the nitriles and everything, the black ones, the good ones.
Yeah.
So I shoved this thing in there and like touching it as little as we can, doing the chem thing where you grab your gloves like this and
Yeah.
peel them both off at the same time so you don't touch them. So uh yeah, and so then zip that thing up and then we threw it like into the pickup from from the second floor. And immediately peeled out to our demo range, and I drew I drew a block of C and a bunch of MD two lengths of MDI, which is a shock tube with that has a little blasting cap on the end of it. It's a way to remotely initiate explosives, and because whenever you prime into explosives, you use two caps, always two, never one. Um, but yeah, so like we'll solve this problem. I put that we put that on top of the body bag, and we're like, all right, we're gonna blow this thing down. This is gonna be great. We pretzeled it up into like as small as it can get. We're like, this should solve this problem. It's not gonna be as resilient as a human being. Boy, were we fucking wrong.
Oh no.
We cranked that thing off, and there's a Terminator sitting there in like a hunched position, and we're like, oh shit. That's when we found out that the medical grade silicone tamps explosives really, really well, and there's also metal skeletons in those really expensive sex dolls. So and we're like, oh shit! It was like, what do we do? And I'm like, I don't fucking know, man. That was all I got. So we took it out into the impact area and buried that fucking thing. So somebody's gonna go out and do range clearance one day and be like, what the fuck is this?
That's pretty
Oh,
good. That story started
yeah.
off dark but got better.
That was my favorite shot ever. Like
Oh.
I'm never gonna get over that. It's the time I blew up a sex doll.
Oh man, that's a story I've never heard from you. So I learned something new today. Uh, I hope anyone that watches this learned something new. Yeah, no, thank you a lot. Thank you. That was good. We'll have to do a part two soon because I know you've got a lot more good stories.